Hello and welcome to Film Friday for Friday, June 18th. I'm Darlene Tate. In studio production news, we have the Netflix feature produced by Paul Schiff entitled The Last Will and Testament of Charles Abernathy, which is currently filming in both Vancouver and Victoria. This storyline focuses on a billionaire on the eve of his 75th birthday. Shawshank Redemption's Bob Gunton, who plays Mr. Abernathy, invites his estranged children back home out of fear that tonight someone or something is going to kill him. He puts each of their inheritances on the line to make sure they'll help. Also from Netflix, the feature film Rescued by Ruby, which has been filming for a couple of weeks, will continue into early July. We chatted with producer Jane Charles on episode number 9. Front Street Pictures continues with Hallmark's Rise and Shine Benedict Stone until about the end of this month. Cinevic's Film Slam project, announced last month, will be screening the participants' films in a free weekend event starting tonight. You do need to register to be able to see what local filmmakers created as part of the national 48-hour film project. Creators had just 48 hours to complete their projects, and now you'll have 48 hours to watch them. They start tonight at 8 p.m. Don't forget to register. The links are provided. In other indie news, the dramatic short Coming Home goes to camera next weekend. This Sue co-directed, Brent Lanyon written short features actors Eric Yu, Scott Harlow, Daniel Bruce, and myself as the president. The logline for this short is, with a world-ending crisis looming, US President Laurie Madden has to determine what the end of the world might look like for the planet and for herself. To keep updated on the progress of this short, like and follow their Facebook page. The link will be provided. And now we're going to have a brief chat with local favorite actress and comedian Kirsten Van Ritzen. We're going to chat about her involvement in a recent project, Passion and Performance Presents The Bad Guy. So Kirsten, thank you very much for joining us, and I'm excited to hear about your project.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to tell you about it. This project is called The Bad Guy, and it's a 4-part murder mystery that takes place backstage at a theater during the 1940s. The hook is that there's no recorded dialogue. The story is all told through dance. Fantasy dance sequences where the lyrics carry the story forward, and also realistic acting scenes with a tiny bit of subtitling narration from the point of view of my character.
Okay, very interesting. Now you've also, if I'm understanding correctly, you are going to share this through kind of a hybrid event.
We are debuting on the big screen. How thrilling that cinemas are open again. So every Tuesday in July at the Silver City Telecom, a new episode will debut with 2 screenings at 7:30 and at 9:10. And so you can see it live, but if you don't want to, it will also be available for rental or for purchase, also through Eventbrite, and that will be available in August.
How long did this take you to do?
This was a huge project. More than 50 people were involved over several months. We were always following the evolving guidelines. A lot of the times I was rehearsing by myself at home by video, but I played Detective Calidus investigating the murder. 17 suspects, everyone from the costume designer to the understudy to the usher, they're all suspicious. There's comedy, there's drama, it's all contemporary pop music with the really cool 1940s flavor to it. So there's a lot to love, and I'm hoping audiences will come out and enjoy it with us.
Well, and I know the production will be absolutely infused with your talents, your passions.
But I need to give credit to the creator, Rachel Pash of Passion and Performance. This was all her brainchild, along with Riptide Studios, who worked very hard to make such a big team come together. So
wonderful. Well, we know that the folks at Riptide do a great job. So combining all of that together, it sounds like you have a marvelous team, marvelous production. So much success to you, and we will include the links. So thanks for popping on today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And now let's move on to our conversation with intimacy director, Tanille Geib. Tanille brings her experience as a director, intimacy coach, and sexual health educator to film sets to support cast and crew through intimate scenes. With the Me Too movement erupting, she also believes in creating safer spaces where people can be empowered on set and screen for intimate scenes. So welcome, Tanille, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to talk to you and learn about what you do.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Now, tell us first how the role of an intimacy coordinator came into being.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I believe it started out east with HBO. I'm dropping the name right now, but basically, there was a need to bring someone on to support actors and create safer spaces for more intimate scenes. That could include intimate sexuality or even just high emotional conflict scenes as well. So yeah, it was basically after like the Time's Up movement and the Me Too, these are actual solutions that the film industry is coming up to create safer spaces. I don't believe that there is ever a safe space in this world, but we can create safer places for people to practice their craft.
Because this segment deals with people who are either really interested in film or are filmmakers themselves.
Yeah.
What instances in a script should indicate to a producer or director that, we need to bring in an intimacy coordinator? What elements show up?
Yeah, so in script, if the dialogue is like they move to sex or they are engaging in any time of relational intimacy pieces, I think would be a great indicator of having that support. I think if there's any time a director or producer is like, ooh, that's a bit tender, like that could be intense emotions for people or triggering perhaps, that could be a place where, oh, this would be really great for extra support on the team.
So so filmmakers kind of understand this process. So once there is a decision made, we need to bring on an intimacy coordinator. I'm very interested in how the first conversations go. And when I say that, I mean the first conversation with the producer, the first conversation with the director, and the first conversations with the talent that are participating in that scene.
Yeah, so in my experience, people have reached out and I asked them to, review the script myself. I asked them about their vision of those particular scenes, kind of like more like of the ideals wish list kind of thing. Their hopes and dreams for the mood that they're going for, what maybe like they're like, oh, I have this very clear vision of this type of movement for this body or this person, any kind of hopes and dreams for that. Even coming in with like, oh, this certain lighting will be here, so can you be aware of that? Or it's set at this time of day, just anything that really is helpful for me to figure out, okay, what is the vision and how can I support that in the work that I do, right? So if they're like, oh, we really want this scene by the river to kind of look and feel like this, I can then think about, oh, okay, like, can I prepare any choreography around that, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then it's not totally different, but the way that I connect with talent is very practical questions like, have you done scenes like this before in film? What were your experiences? Do you have any boundaries or needs that I need to really honor or advocate or protect for you? Is there anything going on in your life right now that you want me to kind of be aware about or know about? Because then that might come up in a different way on shoot date, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So just kind of more of a rounded about like, who are you? What are your boundaries? What are you comfortable with? What are you excited about? Maybe there's something they're excited to try in a scene like this. Do they have any specific questions for me and how I practice? I usually give them kind of a heads up of the container I like to use. So that those first initial conversations have gone like that in the past for me, but just really seeing like how they are feeling about it, what I need to know also if they have any intimacy riders, right? So if them and their agent has made any specific like, yes, I'll do my lower back, but and show that or not or whatever. So I kind of need to know like the specific legal boundaries as well that they've signed up for. And it doesn't necessarily always mean that they have to go that far. It's just that that's what they have agreed upon in prior. And then, you know, seeing how that plays out is there.
Because this is a relatively new position in the minds of a lot of filmmakers, because I still get even filmmakers who have some experience saying, oh, what is that? Or, you know, when do I need that? So that's why I'm kind of asking some of these really basic questions. But do you ever run into, are there issues where your services are legally or contractually required? Is this something a director producer has an option with, or is it something that they may be mandated or required to provide your services?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any mandates so far, but I think absolutely in the next 5 to 10 years, there are probably going to be some mandates or legal say in that if you're doing certain these kinds of things, you do have to have an intimacy coordinator working on that. I think it's really, really important if it's any to do with minors, if they are acting and playing any roles that is their intimacy and sexuality, like please hands down get an intimacy coordinator. And then I think there has been feedback in the community that like a lot of talent and actors are like, oh my God, I wish I had an intimacy coordinator. And I think it can also be up to them to say that that's like a need that they need in a certain script. And maybe the agent can say, oh, this actor for this work needs an intimacy coordinator. So there could be some steps in that way, advocating for yourself as talent and saying, I would love to do this role. I require an intimacy coordinator, because that's maybe a bit more powerful on that end. I know that producers and directors are, yeah, still getting used to it. It's definitely a shift and a change, but really it's to support that vision and make sure that everyone feels heard and cared for, essentially, to make that vision a reality.
Now, Tanille, what advice would you give to, particularly to younger performers who may not have yet found their voice yet, or their willingness to strongly advocate for themselves? What advice do you have for them when they are being considered for a role and they may be afraid to ask for an intimacy coordinator because they're afraid it may pull them out of consideration ahead of a decision being made? How would you advise that talent and or their agent how to proceed and still get what they need but not take them out of the running?
Yeah, so basically a check-in with yourself, you know, really about like, is there any scenes that are like literally hands down a deal breaker for you, right? Like, don't put yourself in a situation where it is going to be harmful to you. You know, you will know what is best for you. If you are looking at certain scenes and they're like, ooh, like I would like more support in this, it would be beneficial to me in my process and maybe with others on set. And you know, it's about the practice of asking, I think, more than anything. And I think if there's like this beautiful movement where all actors are just asking for it, then it will become that requirement, right? And I really empathize and understand that there is such competition in the talent world in actors that they face. And so that is what we call a power dynamic, right? So I need to be aware of what power dynamics are happening for people to say yes or no to the role, to the scenario, the scene, that kind of thing. And the way to deal with power dynamics is sometimes just like voice them, right? Is like the agent, if you have one, could say, hey, like my client really does want to take this role on. They're curious about additional support. What could that look like with an intimacy coordinator, that kind of thing. But yeah, the more we practice asking for what we need to feel safer is just going to be amazing for your career.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to talk about on set, the line between film director, intimacy coordinator. What if there is a conflict around the best way to shoot a scene?
Right.
How does that get resolved?
Yeah, so in my experiences, I'm really there as an advocate for the actors, and I'm there to try and get the vision met. So it's like kind of like this tug and pull middle scenario, but hopefully my role is to come up with creative solutions that create more safety for the actors and can also get the vision that the director wants, right? But if there is a disagreement, I can be very clear, being like, actually, this position actually hurts someone's hip, or they're just not feeling comfortable. Can we switch it up? And I can, advocate in that way. Yeah, so it depends on the relationship you develop with the producers and directors. And at times it can be a little bit tension, but hopefully I'm bearing that tension and the talent is not.
Do you also work with, I'm part of also the indie film world.
Right.
Now, a lot of times there are projects that are either very low or no budgets.
Absolutely.
Are you available for either consultation or work with tiny budget productions? I mean, is that something you'd undertake?
Yeah, so it really just depends on my schedule. I do quite a few different things in my life all around intimacy. So it just depends on location and availability and what type of the project it demands of me. I'm at the point, just in my own boundaries, there's got to be something offered. It doesn't necessarily have to always be a lot, but to honor the 10 to 13 years I've done in this field, in not just intimacy coordination, but intimacy and safer spaces and consent in general. I think it's good to put some sort of budget together. So that's my own personal thing. That might not be true for every intimacy coordinator, especially because it's so new and people are trying to get more experience hours to get specifically certified if they need that. But yeah, I think each project deserves that, especially in indie, because there can be more people taking on more roles, right, to make that happen.
Yeah.
So having that, and sometimes it is about that consultation, right? So say if they're like, well, we don't have a budget for you to be on set, but can I pick your brain for an hour on creating a safer space? Something like that is absolutely open for that.
I'd like to close this off with, I imagine there are a number of people watching who are interested in, I think I can do that. Like, how does somebody go about becoming a certified intimacy coordinator?
Yeah, so there's multiple programs popping up. There's Intimacy Coordinators International. There is also, I'm forgetting the acronym. But yeah, if you just look up intimacy coordinators training, I think 3 to 5 will pop up at this point across the world even. And if you're looking for, there's intimacy direction through theater work as well. So there's particular training and certification for that. So yeah, it just really, really depends. I've come to this through a healthy sexuality background, and I used to be a theater director, producer, and writer. So I have artistic background, and I also have 10 years of sexuality background. So it was like a very beautiful fuse for my already talents that I have. But if you're interested in this at all and you're like, oh, well, I've done support in this way for people or organizations in my job, or oh, I've worked in film, but I haven't quite found where I fit yet, and this is piquing my interest, there's absolutely room and space for you to look into it.
Wonderful. Well, my
Mhm.
plan is to, or I will be putting in links here to both
Okay,
your
great.
website,
Great.
and I will also look for intimacy coordinator certification training, and I'll provide some links.
Yeah, I believe there's two prominent ones in the States, and then there's a couple in Europe as well. So
Are there any that are Canadian based that you're aware of?
there are people representing one of the American ones, but I don't know if they do full-on trainings here. One thing that's been really great last summer when we were all bored from the pandemic, there's a lot of like 90-minute workshops you can take just to get a taste of some ideas or practices. And then you can maybe sign on for the certification because it is quite, it's some cash for people. So it might not always be accessible that way for folks, but you can start taking like a 90-minute workshop here or there and just start to understand a little bit of the nuances of the role.
Well, when I first looked into this, when I heard about it, I can't remember, it was at least a year, maybe 2 years ago.
Mhm.
I did check into certification because I was intrigued myself
Yeah.
and found that the cost to certification, once you go through the training, was at that time was up around $10,000. Does that sound
Yeah.
about what it?
Yeah, if not more. And I think before it required you to go down to the States. So you're looking at, you
Right.
know, accommodation, flights, all these things. Since the pandemic, I think they've tried to move some of that online, which will cut down some of those costs. But yeah, it is quite pricey. Not that it's not worth it if you have no background of either healthy human sexuality or film and that kind of thing. I think it's absolutely worth taking it. But yeah, you might have to save some money for it to take it.
All right, Tanille. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and shedding some light on the role for both people who may be interested and for filmmakers. So I appreciate your time, and it was a good chat. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, it's my honor. And I just hope that, we create happier, positive experiences on set for everyone.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Tanille. As mentioned, we are providing links both to Tanille's website and her social media so that you can follow her. And that's it for Film Friday for Friday, June 18th. Thank you for joining us. See you soon. We're going to talk to her about her involvement. Something itchy in my nostril. We're going to chat. What is it? And now let's move on to our conversation with intimacy director, Tanille. Oh, shit. And now let's move on to our conversation with intimacy. Continue to follow her. What the hell? Okay. There's nothing there. It's just feels like I got a little hair in the breeze or something.